For those of you that need to feel something, my daughter said to me, I will tell you what to say about me, Dad. Thank you and I love you, but it's my voice. Aziza has her story, and it's not my voice, it's her voice. But I would be honored if you would allow me to simply introduce her.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mike. Thank you to the Hope Center and Shani Baraka Center for having this event. Can't have enough events around this topic because it affects all of us. Even if you're not a survivor of abuse, you know someone who is a survivor, there is someone living in your communities that are survivors, and it intersects with every social issue in our life. It connects with homelessness. Ms. Choi was talking about the statistics, the rates of domestic violence that send people to be unhoused and unsheltered. It affects hunger, it affects food insecurity. For me, it affected my ability to thrive. I struggled a great deal after experiencing what I experienced, and then I can share with you how it did affect every aspect of my life. So going all the way back to the beginning, when I was 8 years old, my father started molesting me. He was an African-American man, very prominent in his community. A lot of people respected him. People in our local community, politicians respected him. He spoke at events. He eventually started producing music and directing music videos. But what the world didn't know was that he was a pedophile and a rapist. He started raping me at 10 years old. I got pregnant with my first child by him at 15 years old, and over the years was impregnated 5 times. I lost one of my children, one of the pregnancies, due to his abuse. He was also very violent and physically abusive. My mother was in the house and knew the whole time. He kept me isolated from the world by homeschooling me and not allowing me eventually to have friends. And then he also separated us from our family. So interestingly enough, we actually lived in Paterson, New Jersey, in my grandmother's house. She has a huge, beautiful house. One side is the main house, and then there's what they call a daughter attachment. We lived in that part of the house. But he was able to manipulate my mother's thinking enough that then she isolated herself from her family. He convinced that her family did not like her, was jealous of her, and used all of the classic mechanisms that I'm sure you are all aware about to isolate her mentally and then eventually physically. He moved us to East Orange, New Jersey when I was 14 years old. That is where I got pregnant with my first child at 15. East Orange was a dilapidated building that he purchased and taught his family how to renovate. So we lived on a construction site through 3 winters, 3 springs, 3 summers, and 3 falls. Sometimes freezing cold because there were no heat or running water and hot water. And I got pregnant. My mother finally, morning sickness comes around. She finally accepted that I was pregnant. And my father was also a polygamist. So he had a girlfriend that he also molested me with. So she molested me as well. And the girlfriend brought up the fact that because of the close relation, that the child might have some form of health defects or inborn errors. That made him very angry, and he became even more abusive. He was already abusive and violent, but having what he was doing being questioned in his mind was very spiritual, a lot of people would say. He did believe in God, and he believed that what he was doing was ordained by God. So when my daughter was born, and she had no health defects that we could see, he delivered her on the floor in the house that we lived in. And when he saw that she had no health defects that we could see, he decided that he would, quote unquote, continue to breed me. And I would continue to have his blue blood children. He indoctrinated in my family, my mother specifically, that one of the reasons why this was ordained by God is because the royals did it, Egyptian pharaohs did it. They all partook in incestuous lifestyle, and it was because it made their children pure royal blue blood children. So he adopted this whole thinking, and not only was he abusing me, he started abusing my sisters. So in total, my father has 6 children who are also his grandchildren, 4 by me and 2 by one each of my sisters. Now, to run through my whole experience of even trying to escape him, a lot of people ask me, well, why didn't you run away when you was a child? Or why didn't you tell somebody? Well, one, the isolation was there. I felt that I did not have anyone to trust. My father was also very educated in the Black experience in America. So he taught his children that law enforcement does not like us, police don't like us, white people don't like us, and no one outside of our immediate family would care about what he was doing to us because we were not valued as Black people. And we internalized that type of racism or the expectation of racism. So I was afraid to tell someone outside of my family because I did not trust them, because he instilled in me this idea that no one is to be trusted. Even though him as my father was the one that should not have been trusted, he was my dad. And at the end of the day, I loved him. And I did not necessarily want anything to happen to him, but I wanted the abuse to stop. So after I had my first child, I felt even more trapped than I already did, because now this was a life that I brought into the world and I had to care for, I had to protect, and who I loved. Oh my gosh, I adored as soon as I saw her, I fell in love, and I knew what love felt like after I gave birth to her. But my father continued to weaponize that. At some point, he would not allow me to breastfeed her. He took her away from me, gave her to my mom. And this type of mental abuse continued out throughout my life with him. Our house in East Orange, just before it was fully renovated, was struck by lightning, burned to the ground. Don't ask me why my father did not see that as a sign of what he was doing being wrong. We moved in with his best friend, who was an East Orange police officer. My father continued to rape and abuse me and my sisters while living with this police officer. My thinking was that, well, this is his best friend. We weren't allowed to speak to him directly, not when if my father was not around. So the idea of even trying to talk to him, I considered it, yes, but I did not feel it would result in anything. If anything, it would cause me to experience more abuse at the hands of my father. And it was while living there, for some reason, during moments of stress, my father became more violent. There was one point that he tied me to a steel pole in this house and whipped me with an orange extension cord. And I believe that a lot of this was because his own sense of self-worth, because we were homeless. We lost everything. And he had started his video directing career, and all of the equipment that he had invested in was lost in the fire. So here he was, no income. That just added to his misdirection of his frustration and negative energy, and he took it out on his family. Eventually, it spilled over into his relationship with his friend, and he ended up having to ask one of his business partners to move us down in South Jersey, where we stayed for about 3 years. The abuse continued. I had 2 more children who he delivered all of them as well. One of my sisters had a child also during that time. And then this was definitely God intervening. This was definitely the ancestors getting involved. One day while my father was away for a business trip, my son, who ended up being malnourished, woke up with seizures. My father happened to be out the house, but my mom was still there. My brother was there, was visiting as well. And he convinced my mother to let him take me and the baby to the hospital. Because as far as I could see, my child was dying and coming back to life. He was 5 months old. I didn't know what a seizure was. I didn't know what could have been happening. Took the baby to the doctor, and I saw an opportunity. That opportunity was after they gave me all of these forms to fill out because I did not have health insurance. The form asked me who my child's father was and asked me who my father was. And I put my father as both names. That raised the red flag in the hospital. Social services got involved. That it didn't end there, because then my father got on the first flight back into town, and he continued the threats. He threatened my sisters who were at home. He threatened the life of my mom, something that was pretty normal but increased whenever times got stressful, and told me that if I was to tell anyone what was happening and what he was doing, then he would kill my mother, kill my sisters, kill my children that he had at home. Eventually, he agreed to speak with DIFUS, the social DIFUS. It was called DIFUS at the time. And for some way, she convinced him to bring my other children into the hospital. Just my children. She went to the home, took my children out of my parents' custody, left my brothers and sisters there, but essentially then worked towards putting my children in foster care. During that process, my father tried to kidnap my children out the hospital. So throughout all of this time, even though I knew that my children were away from him, I still had this fear that the foster care system, I had heard horror stories. I wasn't sure what their experience was going to be like. They was going to be separated. So it was a very difficult time for me. But what was helpful was that I was finally exposed to social service workers, to doctors, to nurses. I was reading signs on the wall, and I finally learned what abuse was. I learned what domestic violence was. I learned what a pedophile was. I learned what rape was. And this information started to twirl in my head, and it started to empower me. So now here I am having to work with DIFUS to get my children back, and still managing my abusive father. I eventually built up the strength and the courage to tell someone in his life that I thought that I thought I could trust. And it did. It worked. This man happened to also be connected with law enforcement and put some very strategic things in place so that my father was removed from me and my family, and we could then start the process of reporting him to law enforcement. So it has been a long journey. It's been a long journey. There were many nuances that had to be considered, not only in my route of escaping my father, but then also reestablishing myself in my life. Once I got my children back, I had no education. So I had to figure out how to get an education. I had to learn how to provide for my children on my own. And it was extremely challenging. People didn't even know how to deal with my specific situation. My children did not have social security numbers or birth certificates. And that was a requirement that DIFUS put in place I had to complete in order to get them back. So it took phone calls, it took sitting hours and hours in the library. Eventually, it brought me to the Social Security office crying at the window, trying to explain why my children did not have Social Security numbers. And thank God there was someone who had enough sympathy for me that said, you know what, come in the back, let me help you out. And I was able to get their Social Security numbers. Same process with their birth certificates. Yes, it took about 2 years to get them. They were in foster care for 3 years. And I finally got them back 10 days before they went up for adoption. So during this journey, I started seeing all of the gaps in providers, all of the ways that people who were social workers I felt that they were not sympathetic, that they didn't take into consideration that the abuser was still in my life. There was an opportunity one time, I had a phone conference with one of my children's one of my children's caseworkers. And my father was there because he made sure he listened in on every conversation that I had with an outsider. So he was there threatening me in the background. And the caseworker asked me, are you safe? Is there someone threatening you? I don't remember what the answer he told me to respond with was, but I responded in the affirmative. But even then, there was nothing else done. Why? I don't know. So once I got my children back, one of my children specifically, I have 2 children that have genetic disorders. Two of my children had PKU, phenylketonuria, which is a metabolic disorder that affects the ability to process protein. And then my other daughter had both phenylketonuria and spinal muscular atrophy. So she was completely disabled and was dependent on a nurse and respiratory support in the night. She passed away in 2010. After she passed, I dedicated my life to her and improving the quality of her life for as long as I could. Excuse me, talking about her is what gets me choked up.
It's okay. It's okay.
So,
God bless you, baby girl.
thank you, my love.
God bless you, baby girl. Keep talking, sweetheart. Keep talking.
So after she passed away, it was bittersweet because that is when I decided to put myself through college. I missed her dearly, but I knew that I had to improve my life and my existence for my other children. So I put myself through college, graduated magna cum laude with 2 bachelor's degrees.
Go ahead. God bless you.
Through that process, while taking midterms, I testified against my father in court. We reported him in 2006. He was arrested while attempting to flee the country once a warrant was put out for his arrest. And he is now serving 90 years in prison. Now, one of the things that he used in his defense was that incest is legal in New Jersey. So what he was doing was not a crime. Outside of the physical abuse, outside the rape, outside the pedophilia, that after I turned 18, I was a consenting adult. So while, yes, he was charged with many crimes of endangering the welfare of a child, lewd acts with a child, anything that happened after I turned 18, he essentially escaped any kind of persecution because incest is legal in New Jersey. So along with everything that, through my experience, I have learned about the gaps in our systems, whether it be social services, law enforcement, or any form of legal system policies, the improvement that is needed in policies. I am working now towards helping to fill those gaps. And one thing I've learned is that collaboration is a huge part of that. No one organization can do everything, so we have to work together to make the change. The second thing is, going to policy, would be to criminalize incest in New Jersey completely. Incest was illegal in New Jersey up until 1978.